Everyone loves an underdog. I'm not sure anyone actually saw that film, but we like seeing someone win when they're expected to lose. And that, not having a weight of expectation or having a low expectation gives an underdog an opportunity to gather strength. Now, the beauty of low expectation is that if the outcome is positive, then it's a bonus. It's just amazing. And if the outcome is negative, it doesn't really matter because no one expected you to do it anyway. If there's a high expectation and a positive outcome, then, my friend, you are Adele, well done. But if there's a high expectation and a negative outcome, you're left kind of feeling sad, disappointed, and unhappy. Now, I spent a lot of my life looking for these bonus levels, and the further I get through the stages of my life, the harder those levels are to find. I'm a writer-performer, so for me, these stages have been quite literal. So I want to try and go through 5 of some of the stages I've been on and explain how I've utilized low expectation to help me succeed. So the first stage I ever went on was at the Brent local borough after-school club talent competition. I was born in Whittington Hospital in North London, which is the same hospital that my grandfather died in. And a few years later, my mum and I moved to a council estate in Neasden, where people's expectations were kind of crime or failure. But the ages of 0 to 5 are quite a blissful period where no one really expects anything of you. In fact, around that time, just asking a question is an achievement, which is great. But when I got towards 10 in primary school, I actually ended up being bullied by 3 guys who were genuinely called Richard, Ricky, and Ricardo. Or the 3 R's for sure. And when I wasn't clutching my face or crying, my mum and I would joke about their name correlating with the old educational usage of that term, which was reading, writing, and arithmetic, which is just the most paradoxical phrase I've ever heard in my life. But for that reason, the bullying, I was more relaxed at the after-school club. CK After School Club, it was called. I remember the woman who ran it. She's called Sonia. This lovely. She had an amazing smile and this warm Bayesian accent. And yeah, she told us one day that there was a local talent competition. Now, I didn't know what it was like to be on stage at that point, but I did know that I wanted to be Cisco more than anything. So naturally, I said I'd do it. My mum and I, we got some silver hair dye, which turned out to be grey, silver sunglasses. We got anything with a dragon on it. We dyed it green. I practiced high kicks a lot in my living room. And then when it got to the actual talent competition, I realized I was performing to a load of people I'd never met before, and I was one of the only people performing alone. So I kind of freaked out at the side of the stage. And I tried to pull out, but my mum, who was an amazing performer herself, she offered me a secret. She said, Jordan, listen, I know you're scared and no one expects you to do this, but I promise you, once you get on stage, you won't want to come off.
A big round of applause and a warm welcome to our next act. I said to you before, it's very, very hard when you're a single person to come out and stand in front of all you people. We've got a young lad, his name's Jordan, and he's from the CK Club, so I want you to give him a big round of applause. And a big wicked welcome to Jordan from CK!
I'm going to just fast forward through this bit. There's a high kick at some point. I get the high kick. Wait, it's here. Wait. Yeah, that's the high kick, that's that. Yeah, let's just, okay, so. I had been taken by the adrenaline. As you can see, I clapped myself when leaving the stage. But it was just the beauty of the fact that no one expected me to perform. I wanted to be Cisco, and yeah, that's what happened. The second stage that I want to talk about, I'm going to skip forward now. My mum and I, we moved to Brighton, and I went to secondary school in Blatchington Mill, at Blatchington Mill in Hove. And secondary school, I kind of found a little bit difficult. In terms of expectation, I think the official term is I felt like I was in a molten lava, flaming volcano pit of expectation. I personally, when I was a kid, I had a lot of niche interests, like I really liked archaeology and ancient Egypt. And then I got to secondary school and they were like, no, you're not learning that. You have to learn this kind of, this set array of lessons. And even if you weren't interested in them, you had to learn them. And if that wasn't difficult enough, then you were kind of assessed on how well you knew them after a few years in this kind of 2-hour memory exam. It's for some people, not for me. But aside of that, being a teenager, hormonally, there was a lot of other expectations. I was expected to, turn up to school on time, pay attention, do my tie up properly. I was expected to know how to kiss girls with tongue. I was expected to know how to punch guys with fist. I was expected to score in all my football matches. I was expected to regulate my energy levels because I got ADHD, even though I couldn't afford any of the healthy food in the canteen. Shout out Jamie Oliver. And I also, I was drowning in it, basically. So at that point, I did what literally no one in my life expected me to do. In year 9, I entered a geography competition set by the Department of Environmental Food and Rural Affairs. So the next stage, this is actually not, I basically ended up representing the UK in the G8+5 Environment Ministers Conference in Osaka, Japan. But listen. It is as preposterous as it sounds. I'm going to explain to you what happened. So amidst all this expectation, I entered this competition, and I used to enter loads of competitions as a kid because, for me, they're like the haven of low expectation because you didn't have to enter them. And you only really heard back from a competition if you had won. So if you didn't hear back, you could just live in ignorance like, hey, man, must have got lost in a post. So I just naturally, I went for it, and I literally, so this competition was to convey the message of climate change to people of your age through a media of your choice, which could be no longer than 2 minutes. So I entered a 10-minute radio show, and I didn't know anything about the climate. I Googled everything. I knew nothing. I spent most of my time perfecting the adverts, which were like, socks for you, buy one sock, get the other one free. Now, I have heard that some people have, some haters don't like my blatant disregard for the rules in this competition, but I couldn't hear them because I was on top of a glacier in Switzerland that I'd been flown to study, and it was incredible, and I wanted to hear what they had to say because I shouldn't have been there in the first place. So when I came back from Switzerland, I knew loads about the climate. It was incredible. I went to Downing Street, I met Arnold Schwarzenegger, mad. And then just when I was supposed to do my GCSEs like a normal human pet, I got rehired by British Council from the point of this first competition I'd entered to represent the UK in the G8+5 Environmental Conference. And just to give you an idea of how mad it was that I was there, after having entered the competition just using GarageBand, which I'd mainly used to diss my form tutor until that point, the Americans who were representing America, they were all about to go to Harvard, and I hadn't even made senior student. In fact, I'd missed out on it to my friend Dan Dorrington, who later applied for English Lit and spelt it wrong. So, but the reason I think it's amazing is I got to the end of year award ceremony at the end of school, and they had to invent an award for me, which I thought was amazing because I'd missed every single target. I'd missed all expectation. Academically, I'd gone under par. I turned up to my prom in a local taxi. They didn't know, I wasn't punctual, there's nothing. They had to create it, and I loved that they had to create it. Because I just entered a competition. I used the time I had that I was supposed to be doing coursework to try and make something of myself. And then I also got, I mean, look, I like to think it was because of I reckon it's probably the climate thing, but I like to believe it's something to do with my 65 plays on MySpace at the time as a musician. But that might not have been as far-fetched as it seems. The next stage I want to talk to you about is the Go Busker Unsigned Music Act live final at 93 Feet East, Brick Lane. So a couple years later, I'd rekindled my love for music. Thank you, Cisco. And I had entered a bunch of competitions to try and propel myself. In the live final itself, I didn't actually win, but the competition had already provided me with the key to my future career. To try and put yourself out as a musician at that point, you use something called MySpace. That's Tom. He was your friend. Never met him, but he seems nice. And like, yeah, I couldn't, to get a good look in MySpace, you had to pay a graphic designer like £60. And I didn't have that money. I spent all my paper round money on Strongbow Supers, so I had like nothing. So what I did with the time that I'd gathered from people who had expected me to be cooler by that point, and teachers who had expected me to do homework, I taught myself HTML and Photoshop, and I became so good at making MySpaces that other musicians asked me to make ones for them. So it got me so far that I ended up working as a graphic designer for Foreign Beggars, who are the biggest UK hip-hop act. And I met this guy called Dag Nabbit, who's an amazing producer. Now, Dag didn't care about MySpaces, which totally floored my plan. He needed money. I didn't have money. But for one of the many competitions I entered, I got given a bursary by Go Busker for £500, which was mad to me at the time. So I rung up Dag. I was like, yo, I got your money. Went to Whitechapel, and I literally paid like £50 for this beat of him. I made a song called Down with the Trumpets, and I later re-recorded it with my friend Harley, who is there, as part of Rizzle Kicks. And after meeting a director who's a wedding photographer, I hadn't expected him to be so good at making music videos, called Toby Lockerbie. Something unimaginable happened in my career. And
I just want to say congratulations to Rizzle Kicks.
It will happen. This is
because they've sold 1 million records.
I mean, yeah. Whatever. Yeah. So we sold 1 million records. We had surpassed all that. I'm still mad. Anyway. Surpassed all expectation. You know, our management at that point, it even said that we maybe weren't label ready. The two labels before the one that signed us told us it was early doors. I hate that phrase. There was a lot of expectation we'd surpassed. A lot of rappers in Brighton didn't expect my kind of happy hip hop to be accessible, I suppose. And a lot of them still think I'm a bad rapper, which I love. Power of the Underdog. So yeah, but I mean, we collected more points on a bonus level than imaginable, but those points do accumulate, and in about a month, we've been dragged from the world of underdogs into a much more dangerous kennel, a kennel of top dogs and the land of great expectation. So the next stage I want to talk to you about, stage 4, is our headline show at the Engine Shed in Lincoln. So this is the Rizzle Kicks tour. We'd done really well. And about 5 minutes before I was going on stage, I received a phone call from my ex-girlfriend, who I hadn't spoken to her in a few months. But she knew I was on tour, so I answered out of intrigue. The first thing I heard was her crying. And then she told me that her brother Leo, who I knew very well, committed suicide. I remember my mum was working for Childline nearby at the time, and I rung her straight away afterwards, and I thank the heavens for having such a wonderful mum, although I'm sure anyone in that position would have responded just as quickly. I can't remember being on stage that night, and having never been in that situation, I didn't know what was expected of me. But my personal anguish aside, I spent the following months watching one of the strongest people I've ever had the fortune of meeting handle the worst situation imaginable. Her name's Cecilia Knapp. I love her an awful lot. And I could spend the rest of this talk discussing how she was able to surpass all expectations and transform, her weakest into strength. But I don't need to, because she's already done a TED Talk in Warwick. You can watch it. Her name is Cecilia Knapp. It's fantastic. As for my personal stress, I have to be very honest in telling you that fame showed little mercy to my bereavement. I ended up back in that flaming molten lava volcano pit of expectation, but it was a little harder to get out. There were no competitions, there was only competition. I was expected to conduct myself in a proper manner in interviews. I was expected to be a role model to all these young fans we had. I was expected to not talk about religion, politics, or other artists on Twitter. And if I did, I was expected to understand why people would call me dumb, talentless, stupid, or not question the notion that maybe a 21-year-old's opinion isn't gospel. With every TV performance we did, my life shrunk. I couldn't hang out with my friends in public comfortably anymore. And I ended up in this kennel of top dogs, and it was really weird because no one really knew each other, but they pretended like they did. There's a lot of barking, but no biting. And the lack of emotion was so hard to avoid that it was no surprise why everyone finished the evenings feeling numb. We made a second album, we toured it again, it was a lot of fun, but it didn't do as well as expected. I became a cocaine addict, and then, so by the time all this happened, I was already feeling numb, and I was incredibly lost. So at this point, with everything to lose and everything going on and all these expectations, I did the only thing in my power at that point, and that was to stop completely. Now, before I go into the final stage, I want to make it clear to you guys, I'm super happy right now. Like, I know this is, I really am. Like, the 2 years away from that low point, I believe that low point to be like the making of me. I think I needed that. In the 2 years away, I've managed just to grow up a little bit, to be honest. It felt like I went like 19, 24, I don't know if that's the maths right. I managed to just put my energy into other creative areas where no one was expecting me to do well. I did a bit of painting. I overcame addiction myself just by eating healthily and exercising. I started doing a bit of painting, a bit of script writing. And I could just fail comfortably, basically. And I love Rizzle Kicks. I'm smitten by the music, and I'm eternally grateful for the opportunities it's given me, but I've also made music more reflective of how I personally feel and been able to outlet a lot of that angst I felt. And actually, one of the songs from my side project, Wildhood, was recently used for an NHS campaign called I Am Whole, where it battled stigma surrounding mental health in young people. Yeah, yeah, nourish the soul. But listen, what I want to say is I'm a long way from where I want to be, but the important thing is I have rekindled some of that love for productivity I had as a teen, which brings me to my final stage, which is here. This is the final stage of TED Talk, TEDxBrighton 2016. I never expected to be here. I'm just going to straight up tell you that. Like, I downloaded the app like a year ago, and I've just kind of been drinking in the knowledge, and ideas are worth sharing. So what I want to say, I'm not going to tell you anything, because, I mean, who wants, I don't like being told what to do. So I'm just going to suggest some ideas. I think that, like, low expectation could be a kind of key to happiness, I suppose. Like, and that doesn't negate ambition. You know, aim for the stars, just don't worry if you miss. Definitely don't beckon to other people's expectations. Surprise others by surprising yourself. And just be the underdog. Like, it feels great. But to be honest, I don't expect you to listen to me. I don't even expect you to like the talk. I don't expect you to share it. But one thing I do promise you, oh, is that the, yes. One thing I can promise you all is that I will continue to throw myself headfirst into doing things that nobody expects me to do for the rest of my life.